So a follower on another platform asked me to do a video on what I thought was kind of some solutions, because she says, you know, like, you always approach everything from the what's wrong. Okay, well, what are your ideas on how to fix some of this stuff? Well, I'm cautious on giving out ideas on how to fix things, because I don't think that any one man should probably do something like that. In fact, if you had somebody like that who had like all the answers to everything all the time, I mean, you have to just keep in mind what that would be like. You know, that would be, I mean, you'd have people that would become mentally lazy to not solve their own problems. We see this with people who will pray about everything, for example. And I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying, like, you know, hey, I mean, you check yourself on this. But put yourself in the position of the one man, like, you know, imagine people coming to you with literally every crazy problem in the world, right? I mean, you'd be like, yeah, I mean, you'd have enough of it pretty quickly. So I'm hesitant to want to give out like a ton of solutions. I can give you a couple of ideas. Fair enough? So this video is just going to be me spitballing a couple of simple ideas. If you're not interested, just scroll past it. Okay, it's not for you. I would say that like this. The first thing is weights and measures. You have to have accurate weights and measures. And I sound like a broken MP3 to say this, but dude, the US dollar is not an accurate unit of measurement. It is not a unit of measurement of anything other than a unit of measurement of gullibility, you know. Yeah, the first thing would be accurate units of measurement, meaning that you actually have to let everything be figured out there. In other words, you have to kind of let everything go and then correct itself. So you're like, oh, but you're saying you would have a huge depression. Yes, it would be probably a huge so-called depression. No different than like between 1920 and 1921, which was a worse depression than 29. In fact, and I've seen the videos, and actually there's actually quite a few people who've done these videos that have pointed this out, that actually by all metrics right now we're in a worse depression than 1929. Like, you know, than the 30s. We're in a way worse depression now. Now, yeah, we have gadgets and gizmos and running water and so on, but in terms of the ability for average Americans to be able to function the way that they would have back then, yeah, that's pretty well gone, right? Well, so yeah, it would require everything to kind of come down to reality, which means that I don't have to say this, but like, you have to let the illusion of wealth go away, right? What's happened right now, I mean, we all see this. The illusion of wealth that we see right now has caused a mass psychosis. I mean, I did a video on this, but I mean, like, it's caused a mass psychosis. This illusion of wealth has done this. You have people that are too far detached from all reality. And when something like that happens, they stop thinking clearly. They stop thinking long term. They certainly do that. I just saw there was this young lady on TikTok that was scrolling around, and she was talking about, she handles mostly scientific stuff, which is actually pretty cool. It's right up my alley. But what she was talking about is that the internet is like slowly erasing history, and then that way where we only have this long present, that we don't have really a future because we don't really have any kind of past. So it's like, yeah, that's not good. That's not good. That's going to create all kinds of problems mentally for people. No, that's really not a good idea to do something like that. You want to be able to have accurate history. In fact, the more accurate your history is, the longer the term you can start thinking, right? So in fact, I mean, think about it like we'll look at military archives, for example. Military archives are unedited, right? They are all the gore you can handle, right? There's a reason for that. It isn't because, I mean, there are people who probably gets kind of a sick kick out of that, but that's not what it is. It's to have accurate history. The more accurate your history, the more accurate you can make decisions that affect your future. Well, if you can't get accurate price discovery because you don't have accurate unit of measurement, particularly when it comes to your money, which is just a unit of measurement. That's all money is. It's supposed to be a unit of measurement. It's not, so that's why whenever people gauge things dollars, it's like, or any fiat currency, like, that's not an accurate unit of measurement. Sorry, because they're going to conjure out of nothing. You have to have something that has a solid foundation. Okay. So you have to have that. Once you have an accurate unit of measurement, you have accurate weights and measures. Rebuilding, so to speak, which is what you asked about, rebuilding civilization is very easy. At that point, it becomes very easy. Now, it doesn't mean it doesn't take work. I mean, of course, yeah, it's going to take work, and of course, there's going to be a lot of people that are pouring sweat the whole time. Yeah, of course there is. Okay, I mean, yeah, and of course, there's going to be hardships and you know and smiles and tears and on and on. Oh, yeah, of course, yeah, okay, but you have a foundation from which to build your civilization that has a very good chance, a largely above average chance of actually living a very long time and being able to not have to go back and do that again, right? Not have to go back and fix it. I see the videos periodically from young people, you know, usually young people on TikTok, they're like, what's the point of all of this? I like work and I do this and I do that, and I'm like they're like, what's the point of all of it? Yeah, the reason I don't see the point of any of it is because they're not actually having to build and maintain civilization. They're just sort of here in civilization. They're not actually building or maintaining anything. This used to be something that was understood by the old timers. They're no longer with us anymore. The real old timers, the actual, you know, truly old, what you would call old money guys. Okay, not the old money families. Screw their families. Most of their families are just lunatics. But the actual guys themselves, the apple has fallen really far from the tree on some of these people, and they do get kind of an unfair shake in history. But there were some rich people, right, who used to deliberately conjure jobs for people to do that meant something, and that was because you wanted people doing something. Even it's like, well, but you're making money off them. Not necessarily, because you don't need to have a doorman, right? I want you to think about this. For some of you out there that say, no, the rich are just trying to hose everybody. Yeah, they are now, but back in the day, that wasn't necessarily the case. Believe it or not, there were guys who would create jobs such as doorman, because you can't open the door yourself, right? I mean, do you really think that men in the 1800s couldn't open a door? Hoss, come on. Now, of course they could. No, you had a doorman, because, you know, like, you were usually giving somebody a job that, like, you couldn't think of anything else for them to do, but you didn't want them just sitting around doing nothing. Well, you're profiting off of them, you know, and you're exploiting their work. No, you're actually doing them somewhat of a favor, because you're giving them something. Number one, you're giving them, you know, like something that has a responsibility. Remember, responsibilities, okay, that carries forward, right? So it's sort of like it's the argument I get into with libertarians. Many of the libertarians, the argument that what the civilization they want isn't one of freedom and liberty. They want a civilization with no responsibilities. That is not the same thing. That is not the same thing. In other words, I mean, no, I'm not going to do in other words. Like, dude, I said it plainly, okay? Wanting freedom and liberty and to be self-governing is not the same thing as not having any kind of responsibilities for your actions. So, back in the past, you'd have guys that did want to give people these types of jobs and existences, so that way they could function, and they would feel as though, it's an important word, they would feel as though they were part of civilization. They were part of the program. And then they treated it more seriously. They didn't just go loot a bunch of buildings, right? They didn't just go, because see, when people don't feel as though they're a part of anything, you get this. And I know I've said this stuff. Like, this is all stuff that I've said. Like, I'm answering this person's question. But, like, if you go back and you find, not that anybody binge watches any of the crap that I put out and everything, but I mean, like, if you did, you would see that, like, I've covered this probably, like, 3 dozen times now. That, yeah, I mean, when people feel as though they are a part of their civilization, and they genuinely feel as though the people around them, care about this kind of stuff, then their mentality changes, and they want to build something more solid from there.